So, so that is why my first week I wanted to focus on Sanskrit. So yoga, its origin, the branches, and Sanskrit language. So what do you think is like that language? I mean, what is it in? What is the relationship of that to even yoga? Any idea?
Must be like the original language of yoga.
Why do you say it's the original language?
Because it's so much a part of your history and everything.
There's energy in the sounds.
Energy and sounds, like all the yoga texts are in the Sanskrit language, the original. And what we are maybe reading is translation. But whether you take the text called Bhagavad Gita, if you take like 500, I think 500 BC, a person, a sage called Patanjali, so he codified one branch of yoga called Raja Yoga, and he brought out Yoga Sutras. They are all in Sanskrit. All the yoga poses are all in Sanskrit, and all, I mean, everything is like originally that was the language used for the entire communication, for learning, for teaching, for passing it on. So that was the original language, and therefore all the names that were given, even though we do the translation, but that's the name, like that's the way that it is recognized, and that's the way it's even given in books where it is mentioned. So, and with Sanskrit, like you were saying, yeah, what is really special about that language is more than the meaning of what it says, it is the vibrational effect that comes out of the language. That is what is really very special. So even a chant, like, you know, in the starting I did a chant. I mean, it is a very simple chant, and there is no specific even tune for it. I can put any tune, somebody can sing the same thing in any tune. But still, when you render the pronunciation correctly, then it has certain vibrations. And then there are some chants which are from the original text called Veda that I was telling, from which yoga is originated. So there are certain things, they are called mantras. So they are so precise in even how they have to be chanted, like what intonation you have to give them, and that's the way they have been preserved for millennia. Like from the time those sounds were heard, I mean, it was not created or composed by anyone, but even like it was like the person, the enlightened souls, they just see it, like they are called seers. They see this and then they know it's very powerful, and then they pass it on, and they want to, and you have to, for that power and for the goodness of the power to stay and get passed on, you have to maintain the same vibration, which means the same intonation. Not only the same pronunciation, but also the same intonation. So if it has to go high, that particular syllable or the alphabet has to be told high. If it has to be like that, it has to be only like that. I cannot make it then the vibration totally changes and I'm distorting it. So they are maintained like that. I mean, that much of people spend 7 to 8 years studying different, because it's again an ocean, like, you know, so they study parts of it. I mean, there are 4 main branches, so people spend 8 years to study one part of one of the branches of that. And then if they study more years, then they can get to study a little bit of the next branch too. So that is the way people are spending their life maintaining it. And when they give birth to children, they again don't send them to the English medium schools or the regular schools. They get them into this school where they would study this Veda, how to recite it and pass it on. So they are trying to preserve it, because they know that it can do a lot of good for humans if you spend the time, and not only for the person who is chanting, because they are the group of people who do it for the welfare of the humanity. Because by putting those vibrations out there in the atmosphere, they bring a lot of benefits. They can bring rain when there is drought. They can, when there is famine, you know, it can work on it. So there are many benefits that they can actually bring. They can purify the atmosphere, the pollutions that are there. So such is the power. So they are working on it, and people here, I don't even know that these mantras are from Veda, that they had to. So they just tell it however they want. Like they almost say that like it is English. that it is not even from the language. So there are a lot of those things going on. Even in yoga studios, many yoga teachers do chanting sessions and kirtan sessions, and they use these kind of mantras in their class, and they listen to mantras that are sung by people who don't know the language, and they put it in their class. So I mean, a lot of such damage is being done, and probably they don't even know they are doing damage, not only to the language or to the mantra, but even to their own selves and to others, because anything that is very powerful needs to be handled very, very carefully, right? I have a very sharp knife. I use what are called Cutco knives. They're very sharp. I mean, I can have a very big fruit with very hard shell, and I can use the knife and undo it, and then it can split. They are very powerful. But also, if I'm little careless and I don't know, like I am handling it for the first time, I could also in the same power chop off my finger. Then I have to go run and say like, oh, can you attach my finger back? So anything that is powerful, people here take it very loosely. Powerful means they always think it's going to do you good. But we know atomic energy, it's powerful, but it can be used to destroy a city, or you can use that energy for something else. You know, to operate a machine, or like, you know, you can provide electric supply. That's one form of energy. So, I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's kind of ignorance, it is callousness, whatever it is, like, you know, like they're very careless about it. And so that is why, I mean, for the people who are trained under me, I'm not expecting them to master the language, even though Sanskrit is my home language, and I speak with my daughter only in that. It's not my mother tongue, but it is we, Asha, so she, myself, my daughter, and many others even in this country, we are part of an organization that is working to preserve the language in the conversational form. Because there is so much of knowledge, even scientific knowledge, not just the spiritual knowledge of yoga or other things, but even a lot of scientific knowledge, like medicine, like Ayurveda, you know, that is a science of, it's a medicine, and it is all again in Sanskrit. You know, all the formulae for things, the special formula for preparing medicines. I mean, what would you do when a particular ailment, you know, somebody is suffering from? Everything is in Sanskrit, and if nobody studies it, because now everybody is studying in India only English, then who is going to even understand that knowledge and pass it on to the world? So a group of people decided that we need to popularize this language back like how it was originally. Originally, it was the mother tongue of everybody in the ancient India. So that is why all the yoga texts and the scriptures, the Vedas, everything is written in the Sanskrit language, because that was the language of the common man. They did not write it in a language which was not even their own mother tongue. It was the tongue, it was the language they were speaking, and they just composed all these things and wrote down these theses, theorems, formulae, everything in the language that was the common language of them. But now as things evolved and, you know, more languages came, and slowly, you know, like onslaught of, once the British came and started ruling, you know, like they closed down many of the Sanskrit universities, like, and the places where people were conversing and learning this Vedas and everything. So a lot of changes took place. Everywhere it became English, and then slowly people forgot. Like even in India, many of us forgot. So we are part of the movement which is bringing that back. So first make it like a very easy for conversation for everyone, and once we are so comfortable with speaking, then we want to probe deeper, like, oh, I want to understand this, like, you know, I want to study a little bit more, I want to know more about the grammar, about the ancient language. So that is how the interest would slowly build up. So that is the reason that Sanskrit, it's called the yogic language, because of that. So at least for very simple chants, I would want the teachers to learn the correct, maybe they'll only be learning about 4 to 5 chants throughout, but to learn the sounds correctly, to practice, to get the sounds, and to be able to say every asana name, the posture name correctly, and the yogic terminologies, like, you know, the breathing techniques are called pranayama. So to be able to say those things correctly, and because that way you maintain the authenticity of yoga. And when, because you are using the very same words that those people who gave yoga to the world used. So you are connecting back through this language, you are connecting to those ancient seers, and so there is more of the knowledge transformation that can happen, because there is, you're relating to them in the very same language, with us using the very same sounds. And that way what you are passing on, you are also doing your, so being a yoga teacher is not just a service, but it's a huge responsibility. That it is, when if you have taken this up of your own choice, you want to become a yoga teacher, then it is a responsibility that you don't alter things that have been passed on for thousands of years. Though in modern days, of course, many teachers, they create their own versions and they prefix the word yoga with something else, like their name or like their last name or something, and then they say like it is this yoga, that yoga, you know, like kind of so many things that are there. Any examples that you can think of?
Like, oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just thinking like forest yoga.
Yeah.
Forest yoga.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of things. Prana yoga, I don't know, lotus yoga, whatever, like, you know, people, yin yoga,
Yeah.
like a lot of those things. Like there is some, they prefix it with something and they say our yoga is this or that, kind of like, everyone is trying to refine yoga, like yoga is lacking in something, and oh, like I think we need to add this, yoga doesn't have this.
Yeah.
So somewhere it's all happening. So that is why, to me, in the very first session I wanted to put Sanskrit, because at least you should, it will also give enough time for us to keep practicing in every class, like being able to say the terminologies. And so yeah, then we are just going to do a few understanding the purpose of the yoga postures. Like, why do we even have to do postures? It's not for just flexibility or anything, but what is the ultimate goal that these postures came into being? And then a little bit of overview of Raja Yoga, Hatha Yoga. These are again two main branches of yoga from the ancient times. So we'll understand those.